Please make some noise. This is actually the last track today and during this conference in this room, because the next one will be already keynote. So say welcome to Lucian Stroie. He comes from Romania. One and only. One thing to say as intro is that always we do right things, and we, let's say, sometimes we are not doing right things, but at least we try to do right things in right way. Mostly our tracks have been about how to do right way, but Lucian is telling us how to do right things, as much I understood.
Yeah, as much as possible. And I would like to mention that I'm not from Finland, as it is written in the booklet. And yeah, I don't look Finnish, I guess. Okay. How many of you know are Welsh? Welsh. No, okay. So my session today will be about choosing the right strategy of testing using Cynefin. Cynefin is a Welsh word meaning habitat. The thing is that when I started, it was about questioning what is our role as testers? What is our mission? I got lots of inspiration from Jerry Weinberg and his software testing, perfect software and other illusions about testing, where he mentioned that testers' role is to provide information to decision makers, to provide information to any stakeholder there is around the team, to whoever is interested about the product. The question goes then, how and why? Why do we need to provide information? Because they need to make decisions. They need to make decisions in terms of release or not, what features to do, and so on. And how we provide information, we basically extract them from the product. We basically extract them from wherever we can, using whatever means. Automation is one mean. Technical testing is one mean. Exploratory testing is another mean. There are many other ways of testing a product directly or indirectly. Someone earlier mentioned speaking to users, UX. Another speaker mentioned speaking with other teams, communication. These are all tools for extracting information and gathering it. But information is good as long as it is in the right context. You know Braille. Braille is a useful language. But in this context, there it says context. It's totally useless. So the right information needs the right context. Otherwise, it's either meaningless or counterproductive. We invest time in getting information, so we need to make sure that it's useful and it makes sense. Context is defined by, and context defines our practice. So, and it can be defined by the expected lifespan of your product, how long it will exist. In my context, I'm coming from an agency background where our products are mainly used in advertisement. And customers come to us and say, look, we have a game, Turkey plays with France, and we need to do a campaign around that. Your product will be live for 1 week. During that week, it will be advertised on TV, it will advertise on the web, but only 1 week it will live. So that was the expected lifespan of our product. Novelty. Do you do new things? So we were like, okay, what do? We do chatbots, we do conversation interfaces, we do VR. And it was like, how new it is? What methods do you use? Effort. How much time do you have to invest in it, and how much effort are you capable of putting in it? How many of you get enough time to test, all the time you need to test? Very few. Most of us have a time constraint. Yeah, you need to test this thing in this amount of time, usually much shorter than how you would need ideally. And complexity. Is your solution complex? Is your solution simple? Complexity is the basis of my talk, and I will get back to that later. And time to market. This gets into effort closely when it needs to be on the market. All these are things that influence or should influence your test approach. And in my case, it was the question whether or not to automate or not. Should we use automation in some of our projects or most of our projects, or should we not automate? And in my context, it was not to automate. And this came to me because I needed to justify. This talk is a result of me trying to support to my managers why not to automate and what can we do. It was a difficult decision and it was a difficult talk because the managers like to use the bandwagon effect. Everybody's doing automation, we need to do it. Everybody's doing that, everybody's doing agile, let's do agile. Everybody's doing automation, everybody's doing, I don't know, some fancy new JavaScript framework. Yeah, let's do it. So it was like, okay, how do you talk to someone who's not technical and in a meaningful way with something that is not that did not exist like two weeks ago? And I searched the internet, Google is your friend, and I found these two very smart person, Dave Snowden and Liz Keogh. They are two Welsh guys, two Welsh persons, who invented Cynefin. Cynefin means habitat in Welsh. It's a framework for making sense, for determining where you are in the world, what is your context. And it has the idea of using data, using narratives, using information you gather around. Okay, where are we? Dave Snowden, who invented this like 10, 15 years ago, said it's a brilliant framework. It has 5 quadrants. Everybody likes to do things with quadrants. He said, okay, I will do 5 quadrants. It starts with obvious. The obvious part is like where the simple things exist, where the relationship between cause and effect is clear, visible, everybody knows it. Here you have best practices that you can say with your hand on your heart and say, yeah, this is the best thing ever that could happen. Then, if things are not simple, you get to complicated, where you no longer have best practices. You need to think. Here, you can build a table, a lookup table, and say, this is the problem, this is the solution, and so on. When you move to complicated, the lookup table no longer works for you. This is the problem, the solution might be one of these, or I need to add some parameters to the solution to match the problem. Here in this, in complicated, you work out by sensing, so you look out around you, you analyze what you see, and then you act. As opposed to a simple where you look around, you sense it, you categorize, and then you find the solution. Moving forward, you get into complex. Into complex, things are unknown. There is still a relationship of order there, but things are unknown. And you need to find your practice. You need to find the way of solving your problem. So here, you can no longer sense directly. You need to probe. You know probing? How many of you do walk on mountains or do snowboarding or things related to snow? You know when there is an avalanche, people get trapped, unfortunately, under the snow. In order to determine where a person is, they have these long rods and they probe the snow. You cannot sense where someone is under the snow. You need to probe the snow. You need to find out where to look deeper, where to dig. Because otherwise, you might dig in the wrong place. Here, things are not so obvious, not so simple. The problem might not even be defined. You need to understand the problem. You need to think deeply, okay, what problem am I trying to solve here? What is the need of the customer? What am I testing? How should I find this thing out? It's no longer obvious, it's not longer staring in your face. And then there is chaos. Chaos is like you have no idea where you are. This thing here, it's called, the creators called it cliff of complacency. Chaos, it's a little bit what you feel when you are driving on a highway, on a motorway, and you are on cruise control, and something happens. And you are relaxed, cruise control is working, and something gets in your way, and you scramble a little bit. You lose control for a matter of seconds, for a matter of milliseconds, you lose control, and you get an adrenaline rush, and you said, okay, that was close. So this is the cliff of complacency, because you can go from simple, comfortable, into panic mode, into chaos. This is what happens when production goes down. Everybody's okay, cruising with their products, and something happens on production. Production goes down. Why? Nobody knows. Everybody's scrambling to find a solution and to isolate it. Good. So I had a framework for sense-making, decision-making. I had a topic I wanted to present to my managers. Now next, how do I link this to testing? It's okay, it's used widely, it's used in the world, and but how do I link it to testing? The thing is, on the right side, on this side, we have things that are more ordered. So in obvious and in complicated, there is more order than on the other side, than in complex and complicated. And I said, look, that is a key for us. Because in testing, on this side, we use automated tools, we use bot tools, we use things that we already have. And we have scripts, we have scenarios, we have knowledge. On the other side, there is less order. When there is less order, we need to, it's not that it doesn't exist, it is that it's not visible straight away. You need to think a little bit and imagine, okay, how is the world? Alex mentioned early today navigating an airport. Navigating an airport is simple once you know how to do it, because we get used with the conventions. The exit signs look pretty much the same all over the world. The arrows look pretty much the same all over the world. The toilet signs look pretty much the same all over the world. But unless we get that order in our head, it's difficult to navigate. I have seen that with first-time users of airports. I had some relatives who didn't flown before until like 50 years of age, and they were lost. And I said, look, that is the exit, that is the flow. So once you get to understand the flow, once you explore a little bit, you get to reuse. So after you navigate 1, 2, 3, 5 airports, you no longer explore. You just search for those items that you are looking at, that you know, and follow them. So first of all, I got into that. Then, in that part, you control things. In that part, when you have scripts available, you have history, you have done this before, and so on. So there you control things. On the other side, when you explore, you need creativity. There is much more creativity needed. Where does creativity comes from? From experience, from asking questions, from thinking. This is where creativity comes from. And the result of using, controlling, is you increase order, and on the other side, you have order and you want to, it's not so much, and it can, in this part, you can even lose it. Good. Why is this guy talking to us about this? How is this linking to testing, actually? Because how we solve problems. So as I said initially, in the simple domain, you categorize. You look at the problem and you put it in a bucket. That's an API test, that is a UI test, that is a performance test. You categorize, use the script that you have, and that's it. Next time you receive an application, a similar application to test, you can reuse some of that and apply it. When things are complicated, you analyze, okay, what script should I use here? What approach should I use here? What tools should I use here? Then, on the other side, you probe. There were several exploratory testing sessions here. What did you do when you explored? You tried things. You tried things almost randomly. It was not random. You tried things and you probed the system. What does the system do when we try to book on Air France like 9 tickets? What does the system do when I change the age? What does the system do when... And all sorts of things. You probe. Once you probe, the more information you gather from probing, it moves to analysis, and the more analysis you have, it moves you to categories. So 5 projects down the line that are similar, you are moving in that way. When you are in chaos, you need to act. That's the way of getting out of chaos. You no longer probe because you are falling, everything is moving around you. You need to do something in order to get out of there. Just sitting, it's not helping. Good. Next. Okay, so this is problem solving. But more, how do I use this in testing? How is this helpful for me? Okay, let's start with the worst case scenario. This is inspired by Liz Keogh, who did a mapping around estimation and contexts. In chaos, it's like nobody has any idea. Nobody has any idea how we get here, why we are here, and not even possibly how do we get out of here. In this context, you need to act to change. Anything might be a solution. You don't know. You just do something. When production goes down, you do something. Okay, let's check network. The famous IT crowd line, have you tried turning it on and off? It's a little bit from here. It's like, I have no idea what's happening. Let's try this. It's a heuristic. Good. I don't wish anyone to be in chaos. It's not comfortable. Then, you need to invent new ways of getting there. Nobody can tell you that this thing will work. It's based on you. Then, in complex context, somebody in the world done it. It's not you, it's someone in the world. This means that Google knows it, Stack Overflow knows it. There is some knowledge around there. You just need to find it and gather it. You discover, you innovate. You might not know it. You find new ways of doing things. This is how you act in complex. Exploratory testing, session-based testing. How many of you do session-based testing? How many of you do charters? Session-based testing, charters, exploration, it's how you deal with this environment. It's how you move around and you innovate. You find new information in a new way. Okay? Good. Things are getting, so we got from 0 options to a couple of options. And yeah, we can get better at this. We can get too complicated. In complicated, the knowledge exists even closer to me. It's somewhere in the company, somewhere 3 stories, 3 floors up or 3 floors down knows about it. A former colleague knows about it. It's in my personal network. It's in my, I can call someone, I can Slack someone about it. So it's no longer outside of in the world somewhere. And that person tells you, okay, how do I test React Native applications? I have no idea how to test them. And you remember that you have a friend at a meetup, at a local meetup, who said he knows a thing or two about testing React Native applications. And you ask him, dude, how did you do that? And he sends you 1 or 2 links, and you start from there. Okay? So you discover, you learn. And he or she might even send you, a script that works for him. Remember who attended yesterday the workshop about resilient testing. Okay, so in that workshop, we received a bunch of scripts that were useful, but we needed to adapt them. We needed to adapt them to our context, to our machine's IP. Okay? They worked afterwards, but we need to adapt them. This is how you work in this context. Okay, scripted testing is working here with parameters. It's not like just you follow blindly the script. Yeah, it says to do this, it needs to do that, and it doesn't work. I have no idea why. You put in a little bit of thinking to add parameters. Acceptance testing. Acceptance testing is things like that. Because when you ask business owners or people in the company to do acceptance testing, they have a clue. It's not totally new to them. They asked your team to do that. They are the customer. They have a little bit of knowledge, okay? So they are not here or here. They have clue how to do, what they want, what's their problem, and so on. So and acceptance testing is here. TDD? TDD is here, or acceptance TDD. Depends on who you ask and what your company uses. Okay, so 0, couple, a little bit more, tools. And now we get to another context. In the obvious context, it's like it's hitting you in the face. Everybody knows it. It's obvious. It's called obvious. Everybody knows it. It's all over. You can buy it. There are tools over there to buy. You can find it on GitLab, on GitHub. You can find it over there. Yeah, already done. People did it before. You just clone the repo, run the script, boom, it works. Or you can reuse. This is the environment where you have done the same project a couple of times. You have a library of things that you need to do and you can use, and that they are cool. They are okay. Here, you buy things. The finance guys will always tell you, do we buy it or do we make it ourselves? This is where the procurement person comes in. It's a make or buy decision. It's available out there. Automated tests, once you implemented them, they should be here. Because automation, it's like it's in your backyard. You know it, you have it. It's there and you own it, okay? But going forward, these are the options. Okay, my story was that I needed to present this to some managers. And I said, okay, look guys, these are the options that we have. It's either automation, some pseudo-automation, exploration, and God knows who, God knows what. Okay, but contexts are fluid. What do we know it's constant in this world? There are change. Change is context in the world. Contexts are fluid. Changing the context implies action or lack of action. If you stay still, if you don't learn new stuff, new things, new skills, the context will change for you. You will no longer know how to do things. And change of context requires change of practice. As I said, when you move from here to here, or even worse, in that direction, you need to change your practice. You can no longer act the same. Okay, let's start again with the worst case scenario. How do you get to chaos? You are cruising, your system is working, your releases are going out once every 5 minutes, and yeah, things go well. You lose control. Your release go out every 5 minutes and you lose production. AWS happened for them. Facebook, it happened for them. These two companies re-release hundreds of times a day, and still it took them hours, long hours, to recover systems. They lost control, they got into chaos. Even them, even such companies get into such situation. Google is no stranger of this. How do you get from From chaos to complex, you gain control. Okay, now I'm no longer tumbling. I know where up and down is. I can navigate. Then, let's move into the more comfortable way. So, from complicated to simple, how do you move from complicated to simple? You standardize. You remove all your variables, you hard code things, and you make them simple, obvious. Everybody knows what's in there, okay? But also, think about it, when you move it to obvious, you might lose control. How do you move from complicated to complex? You explore. When you get out there, when you get into a new city, a new town, a new jungle, you lose a little bit of control because you explore, you go out there. And that exploration, that lack of knowledge, you get it, you move a little bit back by understanding. When you understand things, you gain control, you gain comfort. I mean, I don't know for you, but for me personally, when I'm facing a new problem, I'm a little bit anxious. Okay, how do I solve this? And yeah, invest energy, you get a rush of adrenaline, you like solving problems. And once you solve problems, you say, okay, I can relax a little bit. This is known. This is something that I'm comfortable with, that I can move forward, and I can call it simple, obvious later on. Okay? So this is the topic that I presented to my managers. What did they say? They said, yeah, it's a good approach because our projects are short-lived in production. You have something like weeks to, I don't know, months, 2-3 months to implement. And being an agency, it's like, yeah, we implement, we deliver, it stays on live for a couple of days and then we move on to next thing. And they said, yeah, it makes no sense to automate in our environment. That is my solution, my option. But depending on your context, you need to choose your ways of working. You need to choose how you do things. Because it worked for me, it might not work for everybody. That's my solution and my view. Okay, wrapping it up. Maximize testing value delivery. That is my goal as a tester. My goal as a tester is not to automate. My goal as a tester is not to fill in reports. My goal as a tester is to deliver the maximum amount of information that I can deliver in any given moment. A couple of years ago, I really liked attending the Software Testing World Cup. It was a competition where testers gathered, and in a limited amount of time, we received the product. Nobody knew the product. And we had 4 hours to deliver a test report. And you could use whatever you had as long as the test report was delivered. How did they judge it? They judged the test report. They judged the test report by the information it was provided. It was not judged by the number of bugs. It was not judged by the number of features. It was judged by how much meaningful information is for them there. Don't lose track of the goal. Ask yourself every time, do I need to automate this or not? Do I need to do this or not? If the answer is yes, do it. You will find the resources, you will find the time, and you can justify it down the line. Be open-minded. Be open-minded because otherwise the environment might kick you in the face. Might say, okay, this is not good. Your reality will change fast. Be open-minded and ready to admit your real context. Maybe you are in a simple context. This means that someone in the company might buy a solution and replace your entire team. It happened. Context defines practice, not the other way around. Not practice defines context. Context defines practice. This was my trigger. Okay, why do we do things in this context? And also understand that the world is moving. Alice in Wonderworld? What do you need to do in order to stay still? Help me. You need to run as fast as you can in order to stay still. The world is changing and contexts are changing. So admit it, and your context is changing. Adapt to change. Adapt and learn. That's all.
Thank you. Isn't it so that some people feel bad if they can't prove themselves that they are not in this chaos quadrant? For example, if I just buy a new washing machine,
Yeah.
and if I'm not able without manuals to run it, then I'm like weak.
And your question is?
No, my question actually is that you just described 4 those areas. It's quite simple that if this is obvious thing, you actually choose that, okay, I should use these obvious tools to solve it. No, when I just buy a new washing machine, the obvious tool is to read the manual.
For you.
Yeah,
There are people who don't read the manual.
at least this is why, for what those manuals are meant. But human beings want to prove that they are really strong. They actually can act in each and every situation. Then they actually jump to the chaos right away just to prove that they are strong. Maybe, what do you think? Is it also something what actually can happen with us in the work context, that whatever good practices we have, people tend to find out their own solutions?
Yes, it can happen, and it happens all the time. This is why I wanted to emphasize and draw attention towards admitting and recognizing the context. And the context is defined by, for me, if someone would ask me to give a 5-minute definition of this, it was like, okay, how tight are your solution and problems spaces? If they are connected with steel rods and you cannot move them like this, you are in obvious. Every problem has exactly one solution. If every problem has one or more solutions, you are no longer in simple. And if you know a little bit the problem, but the solution is not obvious, then you are somewhere here, okay? And so on. So it's like being in this room. When you are in this room, if I put you in this room blindfolded, you don't know where you are. But if I told you are in the black box room, you know that there is a door there is a door there, and the contour of it is square. So you might walk and you might find the wall and follow the wall, okay? But if I didn't give you any solution, then you would be in chaos. If I cut gravity and you have another 2 degrees of freedom, it would be even more complicated. So yeah, people might be brave and try to prove something, but it might happen to backfire.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah.
Hiya. How often do you think about this in your daily work? Do you think about it when you're looking at new tools, or just when you get a new, feature to look at, or, yeah?
Actually, I'm looking at it when I get new projects, and I think, okay, how and what can I use from my background? Okay, so I've tested voice, I've tested DSPs, I've tested embedded, I've tested APIs. Okay, what can I use from my previous experience? The longer, the more experience you have, the more exposure to various projects and products and environments you have, the more you learn. You don't learn a lot, but you know where to narrow the search area. Okay, and for example, right now I'm in testing a React Native app. Okay, what can I reuse? It's like, okay, it has an API, good. So I test the functionality through the API, and then I focus on the visual part using some visual testing tools. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing well on the API side, mm-hmm. and learning how to test on device using React Native. So it's asking yourself when you get new things.
Can I ask another? How often do you encounter that you're in chaos? Like, is it very rare or like?
Yes, it can happen, and it's usually when people are overly excited. The business people come in and say, look, we get this new potential client and we need to do something. Okay, how do we test that something? Help me about it. And you start asking questions. You start trying to find direction. Okay, it might be some questions are dumb, but there are no dumb questions. They help you determine that there is nothing there to look at. So, yeah, I might say that I'm at the edge of chaos towards complex, not in the deep pit of chaos.
Cool. Thank you.
More hands? Seems not. Then it's time to shake hands, say you thank you.
Thank you.